where we talk about all things love. Fall into the vortex with Yolie. Fall into the vortex.
Clearly you like that. Hey everyone, thank you so much for being with us again. Thank you for falling into the vortex with Yolie. I am super excited about tonight's show. Not just because I love Fall into the Vortex with Yolie, but because of who's with me. I'm just gonna go straight to Dr. Adam Falkner, and I'll say a little bit about our friendship, but right now I just want to turn it over to him. Dr. Adam Falkner, may I call you Adam?
You most certainly may.
Okay, Adam, who are you? Tell us who you are.
Thank you, Yolie. My name is Adam Falkner. I am a poet, an educator, an arts and culture strategist. I am the recipient of a PhD that I would not have were it not for Dr. Yolanda Sealey-Ruiz, the pusher of all pushers. I just completed a book not long ago called The Willies, right here.
Yes, please hold it up.
Out there in the world.
Yes.
And I'm working on a couple other projects right now. I'm also a brand new uncle, and I am in my brother's house in San Francisco, seeing this young person for the very first time, which feels like a very palpable and possible and beautiful thing in the midst of what is otherwise such a chaotic and uncertain time. So I'm grateful to be here with you, Yolanda. I'm really, really excited to hear about your work right now and to share a little bit of mine. But also,
but this is about you. This is what's beautiful, Adam. I didn't mean to cut you, but I will use this opportunity to tell Fall into the Vortex viewers about why I feel so blessed to be with you right now. Adam, have been wonderful friends. I don't know, a decade now or more? I don't even know. It just feels like eternity. Yeah. You have influenced me in so many ways. You know, we talk about, oh, you've been a student. I'm your student. We're each other's students. I want to thank you publicly for introducing me to the brilliant and the beautiful Mahogany Brown. She blessed and graced a class that I taught with Loom Fube a couple of weeks ago. But that's just one example, right, Adam, of your generosity of spirit and how even just being with you in this moment, I feel my shoulders go down. I feel excited. And I think what I want the viewers to know that the culmination of the respect and the love that I have for you as a poet is why I chose a piece of your review of the book to put on the front cover of Love from the Vortex.
I'm overwhelmed just looking at it, honestly.
That's all I really have to say. So, you know, I'm going to be quiet right now because I want to get a full, you see, I want to get the full line, fullness. I want to be quiet right now, but I just wanted to be very clear to Love from the Fall into the Vortex with Yolie viewers and listeners, because this is a very special moment for me. And when we have conversations, I don't know where they're going to go. And so for those who've watched this show before, you know that the only scripted part is the first couple of minutes where the guest, in this case, Adam, will share whatever he wants to share with us. I love the dog in the background. Let's get this. Meow, meow, meow.
Gonna have to excuse construction, babies crying, dogs barking, pandemic blowing, like it's all happening right now.
This is what makes it powerful. And then after you share whatever you share, Adam, when you feel that you're done, we'll turn to Love, you know, from the Vortex. You'll read a poem that has touched you, and we'll talk unscripted. So I'm going to go on mute right now because I'm ready to listen.
Great. Thank you, Yolanda, for that introduction and for naming both the construction outside and the barking Jack Russell downstairs. Because, like, who are we in this moment if not available and present, right? People are doing many, many things at one time to just show up and be enough. And this moment is no different than that. If I could offer only a little bit back to you, what I just sort of really resonated with is that you are 100% an important mentor of mine, both in someone, a mentor of spirit, someone who constantly calls me back into myself, to check in with myself, to check in with my breathing, to really, really ask me to think about how well I'm caring for myself. You're also obviously a mentor as an academic and a thinker and an educator and a scholar for me. And a lot of the work that I do in the world is really about using creativity and the arts as tools to help communities have courageous conversations around identity and race. And my dissertation work with you, as you know, was on an org that I developed called the Dialogue Arts Project. And so much of that work is really structured around calling people to articulate without craft, to bring Audre Lorde into the space, right? It is to name the importance of uttering as the first step toward living the rest of our lives, right? We will never get to a spot where we are critically talking about the world's ills, say structural and systemic racism, for example, until we can utter the things that scare us about the bodies and the legacies and the stories we have inherited on this world, right? So to start here and then work upwards and outwards. And I only bring that into this space because that is something that I think of you as a North Star in, right? Someone who recognizes the importance of starting with the self, but not staying there, to bring Rich Milner's work into the space for teachers, right? We're really talking about using who we are in our own stories as a centerpiece and a compass to then work outside of ourselves and build bridges and coalitions with other folks. So I'm honored to be here with you, excited, whoever you are out there listening to and watching Dr. Sealey-Ruiz do her thing. So in the spirit of all of those things, in the spirit, I think, of recognizing the importance of narrative and the importance of story, I'm going to read a couple pieces of my own, and then I'm going to read a selection of mine from the Vortex that I'm really, really, really excited, that feels really palpable and present for me today. So a lot of my work, as I just mentioned, this book, The Willies, is a story. It's really telling two stories simultaneously. The first is my sort of coming out of the closet, my coming into queerhood. So it's really telling stories of masculinity and gender and sex. And then the other story right alongside of that is the story of my father's addiction and substance abuse and recovery. But in telling those two stories sort of side by side, it's really looking at the various costumes that he and I have hid inside of to mask ourselves from ourselves throughout our lives. And it's these two sort of parallel costume masquerading balls between he and I on our both different respective journeys out, right, into the world. So I'm going to read a couple short snippets from the book that speak to some of where my next project has gone. So I have found that I'm really excited to think about and write for younger voices right now, both in sort of like the young adult space from like a literary perspective, but also through a musical one. I'm a singer and an actor and a performer as well. So I won't be singing, I don't think.
I was about to ask you, why are you reading my mind? Adam, there you go again. I was just like, listen, if the spirit hits, please bust out in song.
If the spirit hits, if the spirit hits. I mean, listen, there's construction out back. We might as well be louder than it, right? So the book is really telling the story of those two narratives. And in my sense, in my realm, it's really the costumes that I'm hiding in are a lot about gender. They're a lot about race, but I'm clearly running from something. And one of the smaller series in the book, they were almost like this young adult voice. So the whole book isn't written in this way, but some of these poems are. And I found that it was such an important discovery or an uncovering for me in the process of writing this book that I continued to experiment with it and play with it. And it has sort of become the soil for my next project. So I'm going to read a couple that are in the book, and then I'll read maybe one or two that are in the future iteration of whatever this becomes. The poem I will read first, this is called Let's Get One Thing Halfway Straight.
One of my favorites. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you chose that poem. I'm so glad you chose that poem. Yes.
Sometimes it is sing-sung or song-sungy. It's got a little banter to it. I will sing the title and then I'll just jump into the book. Let's get a one thing halfway straight. Let's get one thing halfway straight. I said, let's get a one thing halfway straight. Let's get one thing halfway straight. I have spent my entire life trying on costumes because nobody told me I couldn't, and the stakes were never that high, which I've come to think is mostly what makes a white writer a white writer. Now, the last time anyone referred to me by that name is exactly never, but that there is also the point. I am a queer poet. I am the child of an addict. I am a masquerading white boy. My best friend died and it was sad, and these are the stories I water into bloom. Camp counselor, test cheat, choir boy, cipher rapper, scratch golfer, honor roll, point guard, pothead. And Whitman says, very well, you contain multitudes. But Whitman was a white writer too. And the not so funny thing about spending a life proving you aren't something is that every story you tell that isn't the story is just survival, or more like a brick for laying until the wall is high enough and you are safe inside and you wake up and you say, whoops, whose house is this? How did I get here? Who did I hurt along the way? And is it too late to call for help?
You know, every time I hear you read that, Adam, it's almost like it's the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's certain lines that I do anticipate because I know the poem so intimately.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's a line that will come and it'll just like slap me, like metaphorically slap me. And I just felt that. It just felt new. It felt new. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, that means a lot. I think also, like, friends of mine or editors, colleagues, also it's like a running joke that I have never read a single poem in my life the exact same twice. Like, I'm changing words. I'm to the great frustration of some
people.
Like,
queer poet. I had never heard queer poet before. Did you just ad-lib that in?
No, but it probably means I took it out when you heard it in the past.
Got it. Let's come on now.
Sometimes it's just like eyes text. Other times it's just like I'm feeling something else. So we're gonna throw that in there.
Come on, let's feel it. Let's feel it, Adam Falkner. You got me jazzed up.
We need to improvise in these times. Yes.
Yes, my love.
All right. I'll read a couple more of that small series in the book, and then I will read some new ones, and then we'll chat.
Take your time.
In thinking a lot about that last line, right? The how did I get here? Who did I hurt along the way? Who have I hurt to get here? And is it too late to ask for help? Right? That question, I think, is a question that every white person in the world should be asking ourselves. How did I get here? Who did I hurt along the way? Who had to be hurt in order for me to get here? And is it too late to ask for help? And what does help mean? And a lot of the stories I'm wrestling with in the book are thinking about those legacies, both in terms of whiteness, who have I hurt to be here, but also in terms of gender and my way out, or my way of coming into queerhood was by virtue. Masculinity is a violent thing, right? Gender is a violent construct. So the ways in which we role play our way out is inherently hurting someone. Of course, the gag of it all is that, like, I was scared enough of masculinity as I learned it that I stayed ashamed, or I stayed in the sort of darkness of my own queerhood until I, felt safe enough doing that, or until I, knew that if I didn't, then I would live an unexamined life and probably die before I'm 50. But some of the stories in here are really about who have I hurt to get here, and trying to engage humor in those ways. And I'm going to read one poem from that series called "Joey from Dawson's Creek Was My Beard," which which for my very young viewers out there was a time when a show called Dawson's Creek was on television. I don't mean to be patronizing. I'm sure you've got Google in front of you. Look it up. Dawson's Creek was a show that was very famous, especially for closeted little white kids like myself. Joey from Dawson's Creek was my beard, which if you don't know means she was my prom date, my monster truck, my main squeeze, rumor swatter. All I had to do was leave my locker ajar for her scotch-taped image to yell to all of B Hall that there was nothing to see here, just Joey at the end of a dock. Joey in a field of daisies, Joey in Bobby makeup ads and stepping onto a red carpet. Obviously, this is the gayest thing ever, but let me get to the point. Joey was not real, except that she taught me how simple it was to hide in a look and a laugh, or to hold hands at the back of a bus and kiss in the smoky basements of parties and on the hoods of cars in stadium parking lots, or for how to say the word faggot and how to avoid the boys whose air I could feel come off them and toward me when they walked. Another way of saying this is, my God, I am just so sorry because there were so many. And I didn't even watch the show. All right. I thought I was going to jump right into this. Okay. So I'm going to use that same voice to offer sort of where the collection has gone. A new book, and read a couple new ones.
Can I just say,
I wish you would.
okay, how that rendered me into silence. Adam, you know, I'm grateful for this idea that I came up with, this Fall into the Vortex with Yolie, particularly in this moment, because of all that it offers my soul in this moment to connect with people that I love and respect and care about. And I'm just having a moment right now where I'm just appreciating your talent as a poet and the delivery of that poem right now. And the visceral feelings that I experienced in my body in the way you delivered it. And it felt like you were going back in your middle school years.
Yeah.
And watching your face and your eyes and your whole body as you read that. And I hope that when we play this back, you will see that and witness what you just gave.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how is this tied to, as you were about to say, to the trajectory? You referenced a couple of times a musical. So I'd love for you to talk about that. You've also said new book. Are you talking about the book as a musical? Are there two separate projects of many?
Yeah.
Make that connection for us, please.
Sure. I think they're very much the same project in that they are the same pursuit, right? I'm writing an inventory almost. I'm taking inventory of the ways in which boys come into their own sense of wounded masculinity, and I'm trying to use humor and the sort of like the silent spaces of boyhood to be able to articulate that without shaming us, right? I think that shame is a very, very easy and accessible bedfellow, and we all have it and carry it around, but I am trying to bring humanity and a kind of tenderness to the ways in which men and boys are taught unknowingly to be violent in the world, and to be violent both to themselves and other people. and humor in that way is really important to me, because in the same way that music in my life, in the same way that play are often my first sort of like entry points into any meaningful education, it's important that people see themselves reflected in these stories. And sometimes when we lead with shame, or if we lead with guilt, or if we lead with you've done something wrong and it's your job to fix it, we don't sit at the table for that, right? I'm already hurt. I don't need to be hurt further, or at least maybe I do, but that's not gonna incentivize me into thinking critically and carefully about how to heal and how to heal other people. So in that way, those are the stories I'm telling in this book. In terms of it being a musical, I know that at the book release that you were at, of course, it was important for me to be able to play with some of these stories in ways that weren't just limited to the page. So I invited a couple colleagues who are musicians and vocalists into the space, and really started playing around with something. So to the extent that it will be a fully realized on its feet musical, don't know. But for sure know that the book is the first stop in what I think will be another extension in the life of this thing, right? So, yep, we're gonna like make a book insofar as finishing 50 to 80 pages of a thing, and then, that is a book in theory, and we'll publish it, and I'm looking for a house for it. But past that, I'm excited to see, what is it in a more realized way, in a more realized space. Because there's a lot of musicality, there's a lot of play, there's a lot of humor, there's different voices in it that demand something more than just the one-dimensionality of a read.
And I can relate to that. And I think, Adam, before you beautifully get started, I think that's what Fall Into the Vortex with Yolie is. I think, as I put my marketing hat on from my previous life, all of these ideas that I work with Anna and Team Vortex, the merchandise, the t-shirts, all of that is just an extension of my creativity, right? Of Love from the Vortex. So I appreciate the way you just explained it, because it's allowing me to see that what I'm doing is just extending, right, what I feel so excited about with this book. That's right. So whether it's a t-shirt that says talk less, love more, or the t-shirt with the lovers on it, or the earrings that I have made that says Love from the Vortex, or the necklace, this is the way I'm playing, right?
Totally.
The Instagram post, all of this is a way of playing. So thank you for giving me that language, because indeed I'm having a great time with it, and the joy.
And you must, you have to, right? Like, you earned this thing, you earned this life. And to, I think that, in the same way you write a long, really critical, strong academic piece, or a long form anything, like what that should be is a bunch of small little gifts that you chop and screw and rework and reconfigure and reframe for different audiences, because the question you're really asking is much bigger than just like one single book, right? Or one single container. A book is a container, that's it. Yeah. And in that way, it's an invitation to sort of like let the container loose, rather than it is to like keep it contained in these 100 pages or so. So I resonate with that language a lot, and I love watching you do what you're doing with it, right? Every time I look up or check my feed, you're like extending the life of this book in some new multimodal, like interesting way, and it's just exciting. I'm so hyped for you. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, back to you, Adam.
So maybe I'm thinking I could read one or two new pieces, and then please. Two, okay.
2 or 3.
I'll be reading 2, then maybe 3. Let's see. I don't know.
Yes.
And then I want to read from the Vortex, and then I want to talk, because I think really it's just mere coincidence that there are other people out there watching this. You and I are going to have a conversation. Okay. So I think this notion of legacy, right, and inheritance, and what we inherit and how we inherit it, is a real occupying question for me. Both in terms of the stories about ourselves that we inherit, And like I mentioned too, right? Like legacies of gender and race and things that we just sort of inherit. These are stories we tell about ourselves. And in that way, I'm sort of trying to continue asking those questions, but also to sort of trouble them, right? Like, why is this the legacy that I've inherited, or what does it mean for me to sort of ask something different? And legacy that to other people in my life, right? To what extent can I, even in asking some of these questions or writing some of these poems, serve as sort of the like disruptive force? I talk a lot with you, Yolanda, about this sort of pedagogies of disruption, right? This notion that there's like, wherever there's friction and tension, like that's where the learning is happening, where we're startling ourselves into like a Maxine Greene wide awakeness of it all, right? That's what I'm after. So I'm gonna read this one poem here from the new collection. I think I maybe I think I've switched the tense in this new one. I'm still sort of playing with it. I think it's in present tense. And it's called Truth or Dare is Funny Because Honestly, Who Picks Truth? Truth or dare is funny because honestly, who picks truth? Like, really, is that even a thing? When you are 13 at the swimming pool or in the backseat of Kyle's Jeep in the woods behind your middle school with a group of curious kids and your heart is racing, who in those moments really is like, I challenge you to speak your truth? I, insert name, formally acknowledge that I am petrified of putting my mouth on another person, and in fact have become so preoccupied with not doing sex right that it is borderline paralyzing. Also, my dad drinks too much and I am a homosexual. No, that is not how this game works. But what if it was? I'm saying, what if the gauntlet that we have to walk through on our path through the wonder years isn't this thicket of silent swinging boy blades or taunts or games or dares? What if it is just a quiet open field with an outrageous Midwestern sky that stretches blue for miles and miles, and the only way to get there is by saying, I am scared, or I am sorry, I am wrong, or I made a mistake, or I'm feeling a bit alone today. This is just a thought experiment here, but I'm saying, what happens if the only muscle we ever build is that one? I'm saying, what type of place is that? So this notion of even thinking about small games like Truth
Adam,
or
that was
Dare,
beautiful.
right?
Adam,
Like
that was
there
beautiful.
are so many moments in my life where I think of something as simple as Truth or Dare. Even as a little kid, as a boy, like how much anxiety or like trauma or violence that notion of being challenged or being dared to perform myself in
Even
a way
for
that,
adults, but even for adults,
that's
Adam.
right. That's right.
And as we talk about, you know, sex, love, togetherness, relationships, even for adults to tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because many adults have not worked through what their truth is. So yes, I felt that pressure. I visually, I saw the group of teens. I saw the young boy with the beads of sweat coming down in that moment that you have to perform. And I also saw the freedom. I can't wait for you to look back at yourself reading that. That was something special.
Thank you.
And I hear the generosity for young people, and particularly young boys, in that poem. I hear the generosity.
Thank you. Generosity is what we're going for. Pretty much in general. If I could make like a career out of generosity and tenderness, I would.
And love, please. Can we just throw that in the pot?
That's right. That's right. Hello.
Hello.
Shall we read from the vortex?
How about one more from Is there a name? I know you may not want to share the name of the
Yeah,
new
no,
piece.
the working title, is the working title of the very first poem I shared in this book, which is One Thing Halfway Straight. I'm
Love
pretty
it.
sure it will turn into something different, but that
Mhm.
is the sort of like placeholder that I'm sitting with now.
Yeah, I would love one more if you're okay
Yeah,
with
no,
that.
of course, of course. Let's see, where to begin? Have you heard? Yeah, you've heard that one.
Which
I'm
one?
reading. He was into fishing. You've heard that.
But even if I did, the viewers haven't. So
Okay.
yeah,
Do you have any requests, Yolanda?
just to hang out with you for another 4 hours.
That's what I'm saying. So
Word. No,
if you're out
I'm
there,
so open. No,
let's
I'm
end
so
this
open.
Zoom call so Yolie and I can go hang out for 4 hours.
Exactly.
This Friday happy hour.
Yes. No, thanks for asking, but no, whatever whatever you feel moved,
Sure,
Adam,
sure,
to
sure.
share.
Sure,
Mhm.
sure. Okay. All right. I think I'll read. In staying with this sort of theme, I'll read I am into fishing and he is into me. I am into fishing and he is into me, which is kind of a win-win. I bait our lines and I unhook the catch and all the other fishy stuff, and he makes picnic baskets with beers and snacks and floppy sun hats and maybe even a cigar or two because they are great for the mosquitoes. Sometimes we are the only two people on the water, and even our whispers carry across the entire lake, and it is always so romantic and adventurous, except one time we decide to go for it right then and there in the center of the lake, and it is really hot until it isn't, and everything then just starts smelling like fish, and everything is rocking back and forth, and neither of us can get a sturdy grip, and we aren't going to finish no matter what we do. So I start laughing, and he gets furious and screams at me and throws our entire picnic in the lake, and I try explaining that it is just a weird scene and I can't unsmell the fish guts and we should just go fuck in the grass, but he can't get it out of his beautiful head that it was his fault, couldn't get the job done. I didn't want him. He wasn't good enough. So he jumps into the glassy black and swims back to the beach alone.
I hear a couple of themes in that.
Mm-hmm.
What is the theme in just reading in this moment that resonates mostly with you?
I think, one of the things that I think, I'm reading at this point, I mean, I planned the first few poems and then now I'm just sort of like picking and choosing ones that feel kindred to both the energy and where the previous poems were at. But I think a lot about how so much of my life's work is focused on like the disruption of inheritance. And I think that's the thing that I'm thinking of when I'm listening to all these poems, right? I know that it's important to me I always want to be an exception because I am a cisgendered white man in the world, and I wish very, very, very deeply to be an exception to what are other people's perspectives of who I am, because I deserve the worst of people's perceptions. And I carry myself around in a way that hungers to be an exception to that rule. And yet I know that I cannot be. And in these stories, especially the ones that I'm sort of sharing or thinking through right now in this conversation, they're really about the small ways in which I have tried to sort of disrupt my own socialization, right? And each of these moments, there is a me who is in sort of auto drive, based on what I have been taught and learned in the world. And then there's the me who maybe in the moment, maybe now at some point, let fear or let the path of least resistance win out. And I think, you know, even in a poem like this, where I'm trying to, in some ways, like hold someone and say, hey, it wasn't a big deal, right? Like your manhood and masculinity is not tethered to your sexuality or your capacity to perform, right? Like even that moment is trying to create a kind of tenderness for a man that I care deeply about in a way that feels like it is actively disrupting what I have been taught about myself.
Yes. Yes. Wow.
And in each of these poems, I think I'm striving for that. And in the same way, Yolanda, that you and I talk about the vortex, my writing is ahead of my lived life.
Yes.
You know, like I write my way out into the world in every single way. And I am much more likely to be honest about who I wish to be and who I wish to become
Wow.
in my writing
Wow.
before I am in flesh.
Wow.
So therefore, I feel really called to being honest in my writing for that reason, in part, you know, even if it is sort of loosely autobiographically based, which most of these are, you know, some of them are not, they're
right. Sure.
but they're all drawings from the same text of my life. And
your life
really,
that is to come, and your life that is to come.
Yeah, and I'm really aware of that. You know, I see the me that wrote this, you know, a few years ago, or the idea of this popped into my head, right? Why did that feel like a worthwhile memory to interrogate? And it is because I see the kid in there who is trying to be more tender than he has learned, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every day I'm trying to use my writing as a space to let my life follow, right? I'm trying to use my writing as a space to be more courageous, because once I'm able to articulate without craft, then I know that I've raised the bar for how courageous of an actor I can be in my actual life.
Yes, yes.
And that's often much easier for me than just having a conversation with someone.
You know, this is so powerful because it is both the craft that we sometimes hide behind, but also the craft that we need to articulate our understanding of ourselves in the moment and also in the past.
Absolutely right.
So this dance with the craft and knowing when to, you know, like when you're tangoing with someone or you're dancing arm in arm, you have to know when to let go.
That's right.
And dance on your own. But sometimes you need that craft to get the step in order before you dance on your own. I get it, Adam.
Yes.
I get it.
I think even listening to you say that, one of the things that's powerful for me about this new series, right, this sort of young adult voice, is because I feel less pressure to articulate with craft. Because it is the voice of a younger person, or it is for a younger audience, right? It is written in a way that is like run-on sentences. They are sort of patchworking around, they're feeling around in the dark for a light switch. And in that way, I think one of the reasons I've gravitated toward this is because it's definitely craft, right? All of those are craft choices, right? For the run-on sentence, the tonality, and the language choice. But it is creating the sort of illusion that there isn't craft.
Right.
And in that, I feel like it gives me a lot more freedom to actually just say and instead of period, semicolon, footnote. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of in the vortex. You're kind of in this vortex in doing this. But what I want to say is how amazingly clear and articulate you are about both what is happening and what you're not quite sure what's going to happen. Yeah. It's fascinating for me to hear you talk about this new work in this way. And it just really just reminds me of the beauty of the vortex, you know, and the power of the pen. So that's all. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was
Thank you.
Yeah, I've never really quite thought about that in this way. I've never thought about what about this voice is really attractive to me. And I think it has a lot to do with that. It has a lot to
Right.
do with like the illusion of a lack of control.
Mm.
You know, it's like it appears as though there is no control in the voice of this speaker who's just bumbling around figuring out life, which of course there's like craft that goes into that, but
Freedom. There's freedom in that.
yes, and it's trying to be as honest as that life actually feels, not on the page, but in the real world, right?
Yes.
We are
Yes.
literally feeling around for light switches in the darkness, right? Trying to not fuck it up and trying to
Word.
figure out how to keep our humanity with us while the world tries to snatch it, and that's an ugly process.
Word.
So thank you for helping me make that connection.
Wow. You're welcome. Thank you for being you. How about that? How about it's that simple? Let's fall into the vortex in terms of the text. Hey, y'all. And you see my little tabs here. Forever the Teacher, I know because you're in your brother's home that you don't have your physical text.
It's true.
That I so happily personalized to you, where your name is on the cover. But just turn to your phone, Adam, because I know that you have it in your phone, and just share with us what you feel compelled to read today, and then we'll just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, first of all, like the honor of being able to sort of speak publicly on behalf of your book, which is your life. It really knows no bounds, Yolanda. The gratitude I feel, I'm just sort of overflowing at the brim to be able to shout your name publicly and lift you up publicly means a great deal. And those words are on the cover. Listen, I'm touched, and I'm really, really excited for you and for this moment.
Thank you.
I also should say that this book of yours has been a companion to me as I am sort of navigating the delicate waters of a breakup with someone I care about, and a breakup with, ideas that used to be the reality of the world, right? I think that we're all going through really profound growing pains right now about how do we let go of what was the expected norm. And in some ways that's beautiful and it's healthy because we're out in the streets, right? Yelling names and calling for action in a way that like we weren't 6 months ago. And I don't mean to say it's silver lining because this is a difficult and scary time for all of us, but at a moment where I'm really striving to find some sense of comfort in what it means to let go and exist in a sort of like ambiguous space, or to like not need closure in order to sort of move on, right? I think that your work has really, really taught me about me in that way. And like I said, for all of the reasons that are dear to my heart at the moment. So I'm going to read this poem today. Okay,
let me turn to today. Today is in the Joseph section, I believe. There's a couple of poems called Today, by the way. I think there's a Today.
I'm talking about the one in the Salvador section.
Oh, it's in the Salvador section. Okay, so there's a Today, and then there's a Today Again that I think shows up in the Tyrone section. Yes. So Salvador, I just want to read along. So thank you for your patience.
Yeah, of course.
Salvador is such a special, special person. I'm there. It is on page 56 for those readers, those viewers who like to read along.
And again, excuse the construction, but again,
can't hear it.
You really named something for me here, which is both, not everybody is like this. You are, and I am, which is why we are kindred companions and comrades. But when I go through it's important for me to have the loop be closed, to have things be amicable, to have And I don't just mean a breakup with a person, right? I mean like transitioning period. I need to know that like I'm good, that like the door is closed and I can maybe go back to it and open it up again. But like, I believe in the energy of like relationships. I believe in feeling whole and enough exactly as you are, departing from something and transitioning to something else. And this book is nothing if not that. It's not a, it is a call for that. So I'm going to read today, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Today, I placed my heart in a little box and tucked it away. I hid it from any feelings and emotions that would interrupt its peace. Inside the box were memories, moments shared, smiles. Today was the first time I hesitated to ask you how you were, how your therapy had gone, how you passed your day. With this space has come new territory, and what was once familiar is now strange. Today was the first time I saw you but could not recognize you. I was careful not to trespass the places I once traveled with unrestricted access. Today, I wrapped up all that gave me joy, just like Christmas, Kwanzaa, Three Kings Day rolled into a twister of goodbye. Today, the universe returned. I took back the friendship it had once given. I mourned twice today. First, for what could have never been, and then for what had passed. Yolanda Sealey-Ruiz. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. This poem reminds me of a kind of gratitude that we have no right to not pursue. You know, I think of being thankful for something or being able to express gratitude for something is not a luxury. It is a, you know, I think the stakes are high. Our capacity to be grateful for things that have shaped us, that we have left, or that are no longer a part of us, contributes to how we're able to show up for ourselves every single day. In the same way we think of like tenderness as not being like rigorous, right? Tenderness is hard. It is hard work. And so is the pursuit of being grateful for things that have hurt us, yes? And this book and this poem in some ways is sort of the tip of the spear of that idea for me. It's like, if I can't figure out a way to be deeply grateful, deeply grateful for all of the things that have been hard, that have hurt me, that have shaped me, that have left me feel raw, that have made me feel not enough, that have made me feel unworthy, I have to love those things. And those people, I have to forgive them. I have to embrace them. Because if I don't, I'm not moving on. I'm not growing. I'm not better. Yeah. And I often think about like the kids that I'm writing about too. And those are me's and different versions of me that I mourn. But I have no option but to feel deeply grateful for them. Because were it not for them, you'd be looking at a very different person, and I love who I am.
Yes.
You know, I love where I'm going. I love that I get to sit in rooms like this one with people like you and talk to you about the shape of our world. It is such a gift.
Yes.
And you remind me of the importance of pursuing that and taking that labor up as work, not as comfort.
You know, Adam, when you were reading, clearly I got emotional, and when you talked about the type of forgiveness that we have to have of ourselves and others, and that is not a luxury, it, you know, it made me think of course, Audre Lorde, when she told us poetry is not a luxury. And just coming full circle, I know this is the old edition of Sister Outsider, but, you know, learning that Mahogany Brown has written the foreword for the new version of Sister Outsider. And you're talking about poetry, and she's such a queen in that realm, knowing that she's written this new foreword where Sister Lord told us poetry is not a luxury, and you're just making that connection for me. This kind of I'm just having a moment of how, you know, we're Mahogany Brown, Audre Lorde, poetry is not a luxury, generosity of the self and others not a luxury, and we're using poetry to show that. Just a lot of things are connecting for me at this moment. And in part, that's part of the emotionality, and also the way that you read that poem. So what I want to do is I would love for you to read something else. I am so blessed and honored to have a poet of your stature read my work to me. Please understand what this moment is. It is so surreal.
You wrote it.
But yo, it is off the chain surreal to hear you bring that emotion to something that I was just trying to understand. So believe it or not, you know, we're coming to our close, but if you wouldn't mind reading another piece, and then Adam, the way we usually, our closing ritual, it ends with your words. And that means that we can loop back to the beginning and you can share something creative.
Sure.
Or I ask the guests to think about your life and what advice might you offer to those who are listening, who are watching, that can help them maybe move forward or unstick themselves in a place that they may be. So, you know, if you don't mind reading something, and then what last words would you share, you know, by way of advice or offering, anything, just as long as you have the last word. That's what matters.
Sure. I'd be delighted to do all of those things. So should we read something quickly from the Vortex? Sure.
You mention it and I'll find the page.
Because
these poems are etched on my heart.
I know, I feel you. Is there anyone that you would like to hear? Yolie,
you know what? There's some that are never read.
Oh.
And Quiet Tricks has never been read. I'd love to have you just interpret that.
Yeah.
Did you think about it?
I did think about this.
No, you see this, the spiritual stuff that happens?
I was even thinking about. Yeah. That's toward the front, right?
Yeah. Quiet Tricks is on 26, which means it's in the Ian section. And it comes right after, you know, I have the trilogy poem, which is To the Writer, 600 Degrees of Passion and Struggles. And you wouldn't believe this. Olivia just came in the room. She's reading the same poem at this moment.
Listen, every time, this always happens when we're on.
This always happens with us.
This is weird. This is weird.
This whole series, I've been showing up dressed in the same color as the guest. Listen, anything can happen when you fall into the vortex. This is what I want to say. So Quiet Tricks.
Quiet Tricks.
It's you, me, and Olivia at this point.
Let's go. Hi, Olivia.
She's all the way in the room.
Hi, Olivia. Just kidding. It's fine. I'm sorry. Yeah, you got it.
No, that's okay. Wow.
Quiet Tricks. You fill the noisy spaces in my life with a beautiful silence. A stillness that is tangible, palpable, palatable, soothing to my soul. You are the quiet that I turn to throughout the day and night, pulling me into welcoming spaces and captivating moments. You are my Houdini. Your magic transports me to places known to few, explored by no one. Everyone could use a little magic in their lives. Moments when the heart and mind are moved, while the body stands still, suspended in time.
Wow.
So dope.
Thank you.
Everyone could use a little magic in their lives. That's a line. I like you for that one.
Thank you. And I'm a little black magic too.
Claim it.
Just
Claim
riff
it.
really quickly.
Claim it.
What comes? I have claimed it, Adam. Just riffing really quickly, and something just came to me.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to close out. I know I promised you the last word, but could you give it back to me once you give a quick riff? Because I want to read your review inside the book. You know, there's the line that's on the front cover that Caroline, the book designer, beautifully pulled out. But I'd like to end this session, this time together, by reading your words and how you reviewed the book. So is that okay?
I'd be honored. Please take it.
Quiet tricks. Just talk quickly, Adam. What jumps out at you? You read that with so much fervor and fierceness. You're so damn fierce.
Yes.
Thank you.
Say it again.
You're so damn fierce.
I like that. It felt good. It felt real good. I mean, I think, honestly, I think the opening of it, right? It jumped out to me even in thinking earlier this afternoon about what poems of yours to bring to this discussion. I love the notion of stillness right now. And I like, in the same way I think of home, home is not a place for me. And home is people. Home is things I do to pursue myself. And when I think about this idea of stillness and filling the noisy spaces in your life with a kind of silence or stillness, it feels really powerful and relevant to where I'm at right now. I'm trying to, I'm not home. Have been going from one transition to the next transition to the next transition to the next pretty much for the last like 8 months of my life.
Yes.
And anything I can do to sort of steal quiet or to fill myself up with stillness, to fill up my stillness reservoir. It's like a tank, you know, I find really, really valuable. And it reminded me of that people can be part of home and part of stillness. And I think that's why.
Thank you. And I want to give a shout out to Vipassana. We both had that experience where we entered noble silence for 10 days. And you know very much, Adam, as much as you know for me and I know for you, how that was such a moving time. We didn't do it together. I think we did it about a year or two apart, but we both needed it at the time. And it is the gift that keeps giving when we do sit and fellowship in our mind with what the Vipassana method has taught us. For me, it does take me back to that stillness and that quiet. And yeah, I get it.
Yeah, that was one of the more transformative and difficult experiences of my life. But and it gifted me a collection of tools that I will use. Forever.
Yeah. So these poems are lighthouses. They are road maps. They are canaries returning from the coal mine with the news of joyous survival. Dr. Yolanda Sealey-Ruiz has seen what stalks the blood of an unexamined self, one scared to walk into the beautiful ache of love. And here she is dazzlingly unafraid to show us what liberation looks like on the other side. There is no shade, no place to retreat from this telling. This raised glass to the glorious risk and recovery of life. Determined and compassionate and open, this is the voice of a poet who knows the heart and a scholar who knows the stakes. And good Lord, we are lucky to have it. Sealey-Ruiz's work should be within arm's reach of every classroom in America. Dr. Adam Falkner, author of The Willies. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for falling into the vortex, and thank all of you for hanging with us, which is probably the longest interview that has happened.
All right.
And we know
I'm a chatty Cathy.
No, we needed every second.
Yeah,
Thank you for being with us. Adam, what would you like to say before we go?
Nothing. I love you. I'm glad to be here. I believe in your work. I believe in your heart. I believe in the future of everything you do and how lucky people that you work with are to have that chance. I am proof among them.
I love you.
Love you too.
And viewers, thank you for falling into the vortex. We'll see you next time. Good night.